Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsay, a psychologist in Silicon Valley and the host of SuperPsyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. SuperPsyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. All right, today for the solo episode I'm going to record, I'd like to talk about the human brain and maybe just take a page out of Brain Owner's Manual that does not exactly exist, but it's a page that I would want to write. The human brain is known to be the most complex structure in the known universe. And yet, it is a buggy little thing between our ears. I shouldn't say necessarily a little thing, but it's about 3 pounds. So here are some of the bugs. First of all, the human brain has not changed in at least 35,000 years. It may have not changed in up to 70,000 years by some estimations, but let's just go with a low figure of 35,000 years. We can say for sure that our surroundings have changed tremendously in spite of the fact that this brain upon which we rely so heavily has not. I don't know how many exact iPhone incarnations we're now. We're at iPhone 17, but I'm guessing there have been, within the years since 2007 when the iPhone was introduced, we've had more than 17 versions of it. We've had one brain in spite of the fact that we rely on it even more than we may rely on our iPhones. All right, so that's been established. Here's the funny thing about a brain. They are not necessarily wired for our thriving. They are wired for our survival. Basically, it's meant to do just a couple basic things. It's meant to help us survive and procreate, of course. And it's meant to be very efficient. And the latter piece is really important to note. It's meant to be very efficient, which can mean that sometimes we don't make the greatest decisions on the planet. One of my favorite axioms is don't believe everything you think. Another one would be feelings are not facts. In spite of the fact that both are data sources, what we think and what we feel, we still need to be able to refute our thoughts and feelings very well. And that's what I'm going to be addressing. I'm going to be addressing some of the shortcomings of the brain and maybe what to do about it. And that will be our closer. So this morning, I'm watching an interview with a fella who is an NBA star, huge. I'm not going to name him by name, a super nice guy, but he said something that I hear a lot of. And that was as he was considering entering the NBA finals, that if he won the NBA finals, it would mean everything. And if he lost the NBA finals, he would basically have nothing. That strikes me as a very common thought and thought process, particularly in the sports world. And it's one that I would want actively to reconsider, if not refute altogether. So what I would say here is that, first of all, there are 2 systems of thought that were identified by Kahneman, Dr. Daniel Kahneman, a Princeton professor who also was a Nobel laureate, brilliant contributor to the field of psychology. We are in his debt. He recently passed, and he left behind so much incredible work, particularly what he shared with his colleague, Dr. Amos Tversky, just brilliant. But one of them was this big book called Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. And he talks about the 2 systems of thought that we have. We think fast. So, for example, what is 1 + 1? Not a trick question. How long did it take you to answer what 1 + 1 was? You probably got to the answer 2, I hope. And I would hope it was instantaneous. And that would be thinking fast. We want to be able to think fast on certain things. Can you imagine watching baseball, which some people accuse of being a slow sport? I love baseball. So I'm not throwing shade on baseball. But can you imagine an umpire having to consider in great depth strikes or balls? It would take a very long time. So thinking fast is a very important function. You do it every day, all day, for most things that you do, putting on your clothes, the routine functions, driving home. If you drive home from work on a regular basis, hopefully you don't have to think. Hopefully you're able to engage in system 1 thinking. System 2 thinking, I'm going to give you an example of what thinking slow would sound like. Here's a problem. A bat and a ball together cost $1.10. The bat is $1 more than the ball. How much is the ball? I'll give you a second. I'll even repeat the question. A bat and a ball together cost $1.10. The bat is $1 more than the ball. How much is the ball? So I'm going to ask you to hit pause if you need to think on that. But many of you probably, spoiler, I'm about to answer it. Many of you probably said that the ball was 10 cents. And if I asked you to really think about it and really write it out, you probably would come to the right answer ultimately. This is a system 2 problem. Unless you are a math genius or a math major, most people will say it's 10 cents. It's actually $1.05 and 5. It's $1.05 and 5. $1.05 is $1 more than 5. And you add them up and you get $1.10. But that, for most of us, requires some thinking. And that's something that we humans don't really love doing, unless we love thinking a lot, and many of us do. But many of us don't want to think, and many of us, sadly, apply system 1 thinking to a system 2 problem. Very often, we hope that complex problems will have simple answers, and generally, we have to think about those for a minute. One of my all-time favorite books was a book called Think Again by Adam Grant. I loved it so much. He talks about how to think like a scientist. He's a Wharton professor. If you're not familiar with his work, it's just so good. But I read that book twice in 1 month because I really wanted to encode some of that in my head. It's just such a good book about thinking. And that's one of the things we're talking about today. Think about some of the other bugs that our brains have, though. We have about 200 known cognitive biases. Let's just look at a couple of them that I hear about all the time in my office. We were talking about the NBA star who said, basically, he was engaging in binary thinking. He was saying, if I lose, I got nothing if I lose in the NBA finals. So this type of binary thinking, not a great thing. Loss aversion. Losing hurts more than winning feels good. You'll hear a lot of athletes talk about that, but you'll remember that from your own lives. The negativity bias. Bad things tend to weigh more heavily in our minds than good things. If we had 100 things happen and only one of them was bad and 99 of them were good on a vacation, let's say, we tend to remember the bad thing. And that is for our survival, but it's certainly not for our thrival. Not a word, but rhymes with survival. So just go with me on that. So when our survival's at stake, our brain often tends to be very good. When our thrival is at stake, perhaps our brain may need a little bit of a tune-up. So I'm going to use the NBA star as an example. He said, if I don't win the NBA finals, I've got nothing. I'm going to engage in a process known as refutation, refuting an idea. I'm going to call it cognitive refutation. So the first thing we want to do is notice the thing. Oh my gosh, I just said that if I lose in the NBA finals, I got nothing. Let's just notice that statement. The second thing I'd want to do is ask myself, is that true? Is it true that I've got nothing if I don't win in the NBA finals? Well, it's not true. I still made the NBA finals. I'm just using this as an example for the template that you might go through. The second question I want to ask is it really true? And this is kind of borrowed from Byron Katie. Byron Katie asks 4 questions. And this is similar to the way she would do things, but as you'll hear, it's a little different for those of you familiar with her work. Is it really true that I've got nothing? No, I still get to play basketball and I'm still in the NBA. Wait, last time I checked, very few people make it to the NBA. Wait, I get to get paid for doing what I love to do. Maybe I don't got nothing. Oh my gosh, and by the way, I won more games than I lost this year, and I made it to the playoffs. And in the postseason, my team won more games than it lost so many times that we made it to the finals. Well, that's not nothing. Oh, wait. And I got better at my sport because I was playing against the best players. I got smarter at the game. The next question I had to ask myself is, how do I know it's true? Well, in this case, I don't know it's true. In fact, I've already begun to refute that idea so hard. I mean, how do I know it's true? I guess somebody once told me, maybe Vince Lombardi once said, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. That was maybe something that he believed. Do I believe that? Do I want to believe that? How do I know it's true? And the next thing I would want to ask myself is, what would be good about believing this? And what would be bad about believing this? Well, what would be good about believing this? Maybe it makes me fight harder. But what would be bad about believing this? Well, if I go through life like this, I'm not going to enjoy life very much. I mean, think about all the lucky things that have to happen in addition to the things that I can control in order to win the NBA Finals. Now, obviously, I've never been to the NBA Finals, let alone played for basketball at that level or at really any level beyond middle school. But for the sake of this argument, my goodness, we're already beginning to refute and poke holes in this idea that if I don't win in the finals, I don't get everything. Well, what else is true? That would be the next question I would ask myself. Well, what else is true is, and I've already addressed some of this to some extent, I'm getting paid for what I love to do. I am part of a team. That's kind of awesome. I have friends who play with me. I'm able to support my family playing basketball. That's pretty great. What else is true? Well, what else is true is I got paid even more for getting to play in the postseason, and I got to, I don't know, have new experiences, and I got to play a longer season than most of the people in the NBA whose seasons ended much sooner than mine. Got to do something I love doing. I got to compete at the highest level. That's kind of awesome. I got to say I played in the finals. Wow. I got to be the second best team in the NBA out of many teams. And I guess I would want to ask myself lastly, at least for now, is what meaning would I like to create around this? The meaning could be, I showed up with everything I had. I gave it my best. And I'd love to teach my children that sometimes, even when we do our best, we don't get what we want. And the question is, how can I lose gracefully and still love what I did? There's so many meanings that somebody who made it to the NBA Finals and lost could create around that. It's not even funny. I remember learning from a brilliant psychologist, Dr. Alan Godwin, in 2012 when I was in a class with him. He said that one of the things he'd want to teach children is how to lose well, because we're not going to win all the time. Nobody does. And in fact, listener, you and I both know that on the road to getting what you want and progressing and kicking major butt in life, there will be losses, there will be mistakes, there will be failure. As Dory Clark said on my podcast a couple of years ago, if you haven't listened to her, she's amazing. She said, failure is merely data. I agree with that. I've heard others say that failure is tuition. There's so many ways to recreate meaning out of losing or failure. Or Sean Hayes of Will and Grace, who played Jack, he's now on Smartless. He says that, from failures, we get the best stories. I'm sure that if that person was willing to do so, they could create great stories out of the road to making it to the finals and being in the finals and all of these moments within the finals, both on and off the court. There are stories there. That person who lost at the NBA Finals has a story to tell. They've seen rarefied air. They summited on Mount Everest, or at least came very close, depending on how they want to hold it. But again, they get to choose the meaning. Viktor Frankl, who had the hardest earned lessons in life because he survived Auschwitz, he said that even in the most dire of circumstances, and I'm paraphrasing, we have the freedom, a final freedom to construe the meaning of an event, of a thing. And I would really ask you to reconsider the meaning that you create around things like this. So, dear listener, this would be a brain owner's manual, short. Hope it was helpful. Just kind of looking at our buggy brains and how to maybe override our system defaults. Just today, I was on Zoom and needed to change the audio defaults to make sure that there wasn't noise or echo and what have you. But this is your opportunity to do that, to hit Control-Alt-Delete on your system and reconsider your system defaults in that beautiful thing that resides between your ears known as your brain. Thanks as always for listening. Hope you found it useful. This is Dr. Adam Dorsay thanking you for listening to SuperPsyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe